excited you made time despite this busy time of year. Lots of change, lots of discussions happening this time of year as well, and we always get excited for that. I'm a huge proponent and a huge fan of vision casting a little bit, and looking into the future of what the industry is going to be, and talking about those things. So excited to share some of that with you today. A lot of these things we've shared with our team and in our conversations we have on a regular basis. And then some of it, looks even further out in 2017. But hopefully these will be helpful for you as you're trying to shape your strategy and your business going into the new year and working on goals and plans to do that. So a little bit of housekeeping. We will be using the chat panel for today's webinar. So if you have questions as we move throughout, if we talk about something you're not sure what we're talking about, please hit us up in the chat panel. There are a few more technical words, economic words, whatever. I've scratched out a lot of them, just try to make it as easy to understand and attainable as possible. But if you have any questions on anything, please drop them in the chat panel, and we will answer those questions for you, so that make it a good use of your time. We will also have the recording available for you via our YouTube channel, so you can check that out. Awesome. Well, let's dive into our content together today. The first thing we want to know, or the first thing we do know, is that consumer behavior will change in 2017. It's often said that the only constant is change. And that's so true. Yet as you study people and you study behavior, the thing people tend to flee from the most is change. Culturally, we don't like change. We don't like things to change. We hate when Facebook rolls out a change. We petition them to keep it the same. They never do, and we adapt and realize, oh, wow, this actually is better than it was before. And as companies are driving change, major companies like Facebook have the opportunity to change consumer behavior as a whole. And we look at a lot of those things across what we do from a design perspective, but across what the decisions we make. And as business owners, you should be looking at those things to say, how is the consumer behaving? What are the thought leaders in the industry doing, and how is that going to drive changes in consumer behavior moving forward? So there's a few things we look at in that. And I say that to you because I want to encourage you to go down that thought process as well and look at the things you're seeing from some of the thought leaders in the internet space, the Amazons of the world, the Instagrams, the Facebooks, the Expedias, the Booking.com, people who are spending millions and millions of dollars studying this stuff. What are changes that they are seeing, or what are changes they are driving that then we will be seeing in our business, and how do we respond to those? One of those is shorter booking windows. We've seen this for the last couple of years, and there's a little bit of research we've seen that says it's actually coming back and lengthening again. But for the most part, we believe that booking windows will continue to shorten as we move to more of an instant society with instant response expectations. And I'm going to unpack that a little bit. I was actually talking to a friend of mine this morning. We caught up this morning for a cup of coffee. She's in sales, and we were just talking about the industry and what's going on and what are you seeing, what's happening. And she sells to business owners, and she was like, it's so frustrating. Like everyone expects everything right now. And she was like, especially in this holiday season, everybody needs everything right now. And if you can't deliver it right now, they're not interested and they're not happy. And I'd already written this today. We're like, how true is that? And she doesn't sell in the travel space. She just sells in actually retail space. So she's very much seeing this with what she's doing in the holidays and everything else. But we live in an instant society, and I was talking to her about, in her role, do you fight that or do you try to adapt to that? Like, do you go back and say, we're going to fight this, and we're going to say, no, we can't do this. All we can do is X. We can deliver it in 48 hours, but not 24, whatever the expectation is. And it's important to set customer expectations. Or do you try to adapt? And I talked to her about Amazon, and I said, you're probably facing a lot of those things you're facing because Amazon has built a competitive advantage for themselves in the sense that they can deliver through Prime in 2 days to any doorstep in the United States for free. Like, if you're a Prime member, that's basically their guarantee for you. So Amazon spent a lot of time and a lot of money building that logistics system that allowed them to do that. They focused very intentionally on that. And then they messaged to the marketplace, have it in 2 days. They messaged to the marketplace, get it now, get it instantly. Who in a million years would have ever thought we'd be buying groceries online from Amazon? But we are. People are doing it. And they're pushing that envelope even further. They're pushing that envelope to get instant delivery in certain markets, to see if the drone thing can work as a delivery mechanism. They're building this logistics. They're building this supply chain, building a competitive advantage that none of their competitors can keep up with, none of their competitors can compete with. And then they're messaging to the consumer, you have to have this. You deserve this. You get this from Amazon. And in doing that, they're building something nobody else has, and they're communicating to the customer that you can't live without it and you have to have it, and this is the new normal. And I think there's a lot of things we can learn from that. You know, I think we can learn a lot about thinking further in advance, thinking about what supply chains or logistics we're building in our business. And I don't mean literally supply chains or logistics that you're building in your business, but the competitive advantages that you build into your business that make it something your competitors can't touch. If you're just looking at your competitors right now and saying, we just want to do the same things they're doing but do it better, you're missing the point. You need to be thinking about doing things completely differently than they're doing in a way that they can't touch. And when you roll it out and you build that competitive advantage around yourself, it is a huge opportunity to grow your business and separate yourself from your competition. Think about things totally different than your competitors are thinking about them, and you will grow to a place your competitors can't even touch. And take some of that Amazon magic, take some of that Amazon thinking, and apply it to your business. So if we're going to face more instant response expectation, if we're going to face shorter booking windows, we know the consumer is going to start behaving and expecting those things. How do we start changing our businesses to adapt to that? We can fight it and say, oh, I'm not going to play that game. I don't want to, I don't want to do that, and we can get left behind. Or we can adapt and we can say, okay, you know what? That's where the consumer's going. I'm going to do that better than anybody else. I'm going to provide that experience better than anybody else. And these are just a couple examples, right? I mean, I want you to be thinking bigger picture than just the one thing I'm talking about right now, but really thinking about how can you apply that to your business? How can you separate yourself from your competition and figure those things out and start applying those into your business? And if this is where we think it's going to happen in 2017, and we're already seeing it, right? I mean, this isn't like, I don't think this was an aha moment in and of itself, that booking windows are shorter and that people expect more instant response. I don't think that's an aha moment, but I want the aha moment for you to be, how can I think ahead of that? If that's where things are going, what's next? Like, what are consumers going to do next? If that's what they're going to do in 2017, that's what the expectation is going to become. That's the new normal. What's 2018, 2019, 2020 going to look like? And how do you start making changes in your business that will help you get there in 2020? And when we're talking about it in 2020, and it's the first time your competitors have heard about it, you've already thought about it. You've been planning for that for 2 years, 3 years, and building your systems and processes to support that. So I know that's a little bit more pie in the sky than what we would usually talk about on our content. It's usually very practical, very hands-on, but with the looking ahead at 2017, the time of year of planning and changing and doing, I think it's an opportunity to think like that. And it's something I want to challenge you to do and think about and understand in your business, what are those things? What do we need to pull back from? Get out 10,000 feet and say, what can I change in my business? What do I need to be doing differently than I'm doing today that will provide a better customer experience? One of the other things we think we're going to see more of in 2017 is urgency marketing. If you look at Expedia, they're doing a good job with this, and they're really trying to create this sense of urgency and compel the consumer to take action, especially in light of the fact that shorter booking windows are happening and that there's a more instant response expectation. Urgency marketing becomes a more important part of that overall process. And when I say urgency marketing, there's a couple principles in marketing that you're trying to connect to here. One is the sense of urgency to do something before an opportunity is gone, which then starts talking about scarcity. You're creating urgency and scarcity to try to drive a customer decision. That's the basic principle of an auction. There's urgency and scarcity. There's one item, it's up for auction, and that auction ends when the bidding stops. So that mentality, that eBay mentality, eBay did a phenomenal job of capturing that and turning it into a game and doing a lot of other things, and they did some great marketing around that a few years back around Christmas time, where they were messaging, it's better when you win it, and really playing off that competitive spirit. But I think there's a lot of opportunity, a lot of things we can look at from an urgency perspective. And if the consumer is going to change and they want to book things shorter and they want more instant, how can we then adapt a little bit and say we need to be more urgent in our marketing? We need to be focused on those booking windows, getting those right, and creating urgency in some of our messaging. So it's not so deal-oriented or anything else. Like, we want to break away from that, which I know is a lot of things people think about when you start talking last minute and shorter booking windows and a lot of those things, but really honing in on that urgency marketing, creating that scarcity around your product that you've got to book it now or your opportunity is going to be gone. You got to take this vacation now or you might miss your window. So you've got to really be thinking about those things and creating a lot of that urgency campaign throughout what you're doing and throughout your marketing, and understanding what that means from an overall consumer behavior perspective, and understand today's modern consumer. We try to represent here a lot of different consumers. This message that the world's getting smaller. The internet has made the world a much smaller place. That people are booking and moving in a constant basis. Like, it is a constant, perpetual thing. Like, it's not a, I sit down and plan my trip in one night. It's like piece by piece by piece. And marketing has an opportunity to impact those consumers no matter where they are on that process, and understanding that marketing is a sum of those efforts. There's no one marketing message that builds your brand. There's no one marketing message that makes someone decide to book. It is a combination of efforts. It's a combination of channels. It's a combination of experiences that guest has with you that ultimately drives them to the decision to make a booking. All right, moving along here, getting a little bit into some of the data. We believe travel spending will increase slightly and be more fragmented than ever. And when I say more fragmented than ever, what I'm really talking about is that the independent sector of lodging, where we work, has more options and more fragmentation than has ever had in the industry before. And if you talk to consumers, there's more confusion about what it really is than there's ever been before. So I'm going to get to that in a minute. I want to kind of hit some things here. If you look at hotel data, right, I mean, the sector of the industry that we really work in, there's not a lot of data available because we're a relatively small sector of the overall lodging world. But most forecasts that we look at have hotel spending flat year over year. And I don't mean your spending. I mean consumer spending and business spending on travel flat year over year. We saw a slight uptick this year in consumer spending in the hospitality, the hotel segment. We didn't see really any growth in ADR. And there's a lot of things that tie into that. We think a lot of it is that 2016 saw record hotel construction. In the history of our country, I was reading a report, it was probably a year ago heading into 2016, because I talked about this on the webinar we did last year with this topic, that we were going to see record hotel construction growth. But if you think about that, it changes the marketplace in a lot of ways. I was talking to a banker the other day. I try to keep up with what bankers are saying because they tend to be a little bit more risk adverse than most. They tend to have a lot of data available to make decisions on lending and things like that. And I was talking to this banker, and we were talking about things, and we were talking about the economy and where we see things going, and he does a lot of lending in the hotel space. And I said, what are you guys thinking about hotels next year? And he's like, honestly, we think they're overbuilt. We think with what is in market right now, or under construction right now, the hotel industry is overbuilt. And he is a major lender at a major national bank. And he said, we have almost exclusively stopped lending on hotels and apartment complexes because we believe those two things are overbuilt and are being overbuilt right now, and they're going to see a correction. So what that means is we have to then think about how do we prepare for that correction, right? If hotels are going to be correcting, if they're being overbuilt, how do we separate ourselves? How do we make ourselves unique? How do we tell a compelling story that while there may be a slight increase in spending, there's going to be a dramatic increase in inventory, so that pie is going to get a little bit bigger, but the slices of pie are going to get significantly smaller or more fragmented, which means you have to be that much more aggressive as you're going after those things. And we're going to talk about that as well as we talk about our predictions for 2017 and what you have to do as a marketer in the lodging industry. But the other piece of that is Airbnb has over 2 million listings. The most recent data I could find was, I think, back from June or July, that they had 2.3 million listings. And knowing at the pace they're growing, I would say they're approaching, if they haven't surpassed, 3 million listings. They haven't announced that, but they're probably approaching that. HomeAway, I believe, has 1.2 to 1.5 million listings. And yes, a lot of places are listed on both of those sites, but not all. So we know there is a massive amount of inventory, and there is more inventory in that part of the market than there has ever been. Charleston, the town I live in, last year about this time had 600 listings on Airbnb. This year, I think there's somewhere between 1,200 and 1,500 listings on Airbnb. So just in my city, listings have doubled on Airbnb. We've also opened, I don't even know how many hotels in 2016 in downtown Charleston, maybe 12, a significant number. I heard last year, I think there were 1,500 hotel rooms under construction on the Charleston Peninsula, which if you don't know the Charleston Peninsula, it's a very small space. It's maybe a mile and a half by a mile. So it's not a big geographic space, and have that many new hotel rooms going up, it's going to change the marketplace. And I would imagine many of you are seeing that as well. And knowing that there's more competition than ever, travelers have more options than ever before. As an industry, we're more fragmented than we've been ever before. We have to get very aggressive on how we position ourselves and how we market ourselves and what our value proposition is to the customer. And we have to clearly communicate what that value proposition is to the customer. Because by the time they get to us, they look like that couple laying there on that bed in that photo. They're exhausted. They're exhausted from the process of trying to figure out where they're going to stay, first and foremost, in the planning process. It starts out fun, but it quickly isn't fun because they're overwhelmed by options, and they just want something easy. They just want something convenient. And I hate to break it to you, but Marriott, Holiday Inn, Hilton, they're a lot easier and a lot more convenient than we are. On the surface, we'll argue that that's not true. On the surface, we'll argue that we're more convenient, that we're better, all those things. But the consumer doesn't know that yet. The consumer doesn't know what we know about ourselves. They don't know how special we are. They don't know about the extra things we do to make their experience something totally different. So we have to market that. We have to communicate that to the marketplace. And while it may sound like this part of this forecast and this prediction isn't all that exciting, and that things are going to tighten in 2017, and I believe that to a certain extent, things are going to tighten in 2017. The good news of all this is that new customers are entering the independent market that have previously stayed in hotels. And when I say independent, I mean non-flagged, non-branded vacation opportunities. We do some business travel stuff, but as a company, we're very vacation focused, so we mostly talk about that. But there are new customers entering this segment of the market and entering it at a faster pace than ever before. But we have to think about that customer. We have to think about what's different about that customer. We have to think about what's unique about that customer. We have to think about the fact that they probably have never had the type of experience we provide before. So they can't come to your website and assume, and we assume, that they know exactly who we are, they know exactly what we do, and that they are going to flow through our website the same way a guest who has stayed with us 10 times before is going to flow through. They have questions that they don't have answers to, which creates uncertainty and fear. And we're going to talk about that a little bit later on as well. But when there's uncertainty and fear, people flee. I talked earlier about people who don't like change. There's consumers who are willing to change, but you have to solve their uncertainty. You have to solve the fears they have about making a change. You have to make sure they know that you're clean, like your place is clean, because that's the #1 fear most travelers have, is cleanliness. You have to overcome those things, and your branding, your marketing, your messaging, your design, your website, all of that tells a story. And it either tells a good story or a bad story. There's no negative, or there's no neutral story. Every interaction, every touch, every moment you touch a customer is negative or positive. There is no neutral. And you really have to be honed in on that to figure out, how do I plan my strategy around that? And are my touches with my customers or my potential customers negative or positive? And how do I make more than positive than negative? Because there is no neutral. You've got to reinforce that. But you also cannot assume that people know all this stuff about you that you know about yourself. We talk about it at Q4 about the curse of knowledge. It's not something we invented, but it's that concept of you don't know what it's like to not know what you know. You don't know what it's like to be a consumer. You don't know what it's like to not know what you know about your business, about your city, about your destination, about your policies. about all those things that make up your business ecosystem. You don't know what it's like to not know those things. You don't know the fears the customer has when they're looking at your website and trying to make a decision about accommodations. And as we talk to people that are moving into this segment of the logic of this industry, fear is the #1 reason people don't make a booking. Because at the end of the day, the majority of people who come to your website don't make a booking, right? I mean, 99% of people who come to your website don't book with you. That's a problem. Like, that's a number you need to be impacting. That's a huge opportunity. And a small impact on 99% can make a big difference. But you have to understand why. Why are they not booking? And asking the right questions to be able to grow your share of the people coming to your destination. Grow your share. If it's going to be more fragmented, you have to get more aggressive about being able to grow your share in 2017 than you've probably ever been before. And that really feeds into this next slide. And that's the idea that customer acquisition costs will increase. And customer acquisition cost is a very Shark Tanky word. If you didn't go through business school, if you didn't study economics, you didn't study marketing, customer acquisition cost is essentially the cost to get a booking, the cost to get a customer. And if you go and you pitch your business, if you're in front of Shark Tank, you'll hear the group, the sharks, often ask, what's your cost to acquire a customer? And it's one of the big things they try to trip people up on. And I'm not going to ask you that today, but in reality, you need to know. You need to know what your cost to acquire a customer is. You know, it's kind of said, general principle-wise, you should spend roughly 10% of your annual revenue on marketing. Now, marketing encompasses a lot of things, but at a blush, that's the cost to acquire a customer. At a simplified answer, if 10% of your money goes to marketing, look at what your annual budget is, look at how many customers you're going to acquire, take that 10%, and you can pretty quickly figure out what it costs to acquire a customer. And you've got to really be able to figure those things out to be able to successfully plan marketing going forward and know, can I spend less on marketing next year, or do I need to spend more? And am I where I need to be as a percentage of spend for the customers I'm trying to acquire? But the bottom line is, we predict, and all the industry data lines up, that customer acquisition costs will increase in 2017. So as you're looking at your budget and you're making decisions, you've got to factor those things in. You've got to figure out how is that going to work in your overall mix, and what is that strategy for you going to be as a part of that. Online travel agents, or what we call OTAs, and you'll see OTA referenced a few times throughout the rest of the presentation, are spending more on marketing than ever before. I was talking to somebody the other day, we were doing an analytics analysis for them, and I said, hey, your traffic from your visitors bureau is way off. I was like, your traffic from your visitors bureau is down by 40%. And they're like, yeah, they're getting hammered by the OTAs. They just can't keep up from a marketing perspective to compete with the OTAs. But that's a huge deal. Like, it's a huge deal that traffic is down to them. It's a huge deal that they can't keep up with the OTAs anymore because they're spending more than they've ever spent before. And as we look at it as business owners, we look at the overall spend. Digital marketing spend is forecasted to grow to $16.95 billion in 2017, which is a 12% year-over-year growth. And you can see this is a chart from eMarketer.com. You can see how that is forecasted to grow on through 2020. This is the first year they're forecasting that digital marketing spend will be larger than TV spend. So for the first time ever, they're forecasting companies will spend more on digital marketing than they spend on TV nationwide. Now, I know very few of you, if any of you, probably do TV advertising, so you're probably already spending a much larger portion of your budget there. But it's important because that's the trend. Not only is that the trend, but if that's what's changing industry-wide, companies that are spending money on TV, that are reallocating that money into digital, digital is going to get more competitive. More money is going into it. It's going to get more competitive, and you compete head-to-head with major international players with digital spend in a lot of ways. And that's that next bullet there. Pay-per-click and Facebook ads will continue to get more expensive. So as you think about that, if pay-per-click is a big part of your customer acquisition strategy, or Facebook ads have been a big part of your customer acquisition strategy, a lot of marketers are saying it's a good way to attract customers right now because The spend is relatively low there compared to a lot of other areas like pay-per-click that are already very saturated. So now's a good time to be in Facebook ads, and that's general principle stuff. We don't see it as strong in the travel space. We see it much stronger. The smaller the transaction size, the stronger Facebook ads perform. The larger the transaction size, the weaker they typically are. So you got to think about that too. But overall, we know both of those mediums, pay-per-click being Google and Bing, and Facebook, which is really a pay-per-click model or a pay-per-impression model, are going to increase. They're going to get more expensive. So if you want to keep the same number of impressions, or you want to keep the same number of customer acquisitions for those mediums, you have to be planning to increase your budget for that. To get the same thing in 2017 you got in 2016, you're likely going to have to spend more because it's going to be more competitive, i.e. your customer acquisition costs will increase in 2017. Part of the research I was doing for today, I came across a really interesting statistic, and we're going to do a poll for this, just because I want to know. I want to know how you guys feel about it. We're not going to use your name or use your data or anything. I'm just curious of the people that come to our webinars where you guys fall. But when asked to rate their own marketing, the average chief marketing officer, CMO, so the average person, when they rated their marketing, which keep in mind they're rating how good of a job they're doing, right? Because they're rating their marketing and they're the marketing officer, so they're rating their performance, basically. So that in and of itself makes me think the number is probably higher than it actually is. But the average CMO responded with a 4.4 on a 1 to 7 scale. So when asked to rate their own marketing, the average CMO responded with a 4.4 on a 1 to 7 scale. So how would you rate your marketing? Like, I just want to know. I want to get a feel for where people are, because it honestly will help us quite a bit as we're positioning our marketing in 2017, as we're positioning our webinar series in 2017, which we make available for free. Answer that poll question for me if you can. This is a quick interactive thing. GoToWebinar wouldn't let us do 7 options, so we've got 3 or less, and then 4, 5, 6, 7. But on a scale of 1 to 7, where would you rate your marketing's performance? How good of a job is your marketing doing? So play along with it. It makes it more interesting for everybody to know that. And we'll share the results, the big picture results of that, again, not individually to anybody, but we'll share the big picture results of how people think their marketing is performing and how good of a job they think their marketing is doing when we send out our follow-up to this webinar, just so you guys can know. Looks like we got about 70% of people have voted so far. If you weren't paying attention, and I just caught your attention, vote so we can kind of keep things moving along. Awesome. We got 75%. We'll go ahead and close that poll out and keep moving along here with our webinar. But the other part of this is that OTA growth as a percentage of booking mix is going to drive average acquisition costs higher, right? We talked about OTAs. We talked about the fact they're spending more money than ever. We talked about the fact that it's going to impact your marketing and impact your spend. But OTA growth as a percentage of booking mix is going to drive average acquisition costs higher. If you paid attention last year, and if you watch hotel marketing, you'll see that last year really started something unique in the hotel space that hasn't happened consistently in years past. And that's that the major brands really got heavy on marketing a book direct message, because they have seen the OTAs come in and take a huge chunk of their business away. And one of the dirtiest tactics of that whole thing is when the OTA bids on your own brand name. And we see this with so many of you. If you Google your brand name, if you're listed on OTAs, you'll see they're actually bidding on your name. So when one of your customers who knows you Googles your name to find your website, because people are too lazy to remember anything today, the first thing that pops up for a lot of them is a Booking.com ad or an Expedia ad. And if you need to be focused on that, because you're probably losing a lot of business. You know, we hear from people all the time that a repeat guest went and booked through a booking site like Expedia or an OTA, and they didn't even know. They didn't even know they were on their site. And a lot of that is because they Google your name, and when they Google your name, they end up on Booking.com or Expedia, and they book there because they Googled your name and it was the first link, so it makes sense it's your website, right? But it's not. It's an OTA website. And if you're paying a 20% commission to the OTAs, you know that a massive amount of your budget is going to end up going to the OTAs if you fall into that trap. And we're going to talk real deep on that topic in a minute. But you've really got to look at the role OTAs are playing in your overall marketing plan. And as we know, customer acquisition costs are increasing. We know pay-per-click is increasing. We know Facebook ads are increasing. We know the overall OTA thing is going to get harder and harder in 2017 for the independents to compete. It reminds me of this quote from Seth Godin, and that is that content marketing is the only marketing left. And what he's really talking about here is that a lot of marketing has kind of gotten cheesy and it's gotten something that most consumers tune out. But content marketing is the process of solving people's problems and answering their questions. And when you're solving their problems and you're answering their questions, it changes the perspective a little bit. It changes that quote-unquote marketing relationship. It doesn't feel like marketing anymore. It feels like you're helping. And through that, you're able to reach consumers in a way you can't reach them before. And as we look at the role of independent lodging properties, we think this is an area that for now, for 2017 through 2020, you can dominate this area because Booking.com will never be an expert on Charleston, South Carolina. Booking.com is too many things to too many people. This is my town. I'm the expert on Charleston, South Carolina. I can fill my property by being the expert on Charleston, South Carolina. When consumers are coming here, they can find me with the answers to their questions. When they Google their questions, they'll find me with the answers to their questions. They'll find me solving their problems. And when they do that, and we build a website that's designed to get them found through that, get you found through that, and it's designed to convert that person, your bookings will come. And it just changes it changes the path we acquire customers from. 30% of our customers see their website traffic come into the website via the blog, i.e. 30% of their website traffic discovers them by searching something that leads them to the blog. That's a huge statistic. And that's content marketing, the power of what's really out there. It's going to get more expensive to compete in pay-per-click. It's going to get more expensive. If you want to go head-to-head with the OTAs, you can, but you have to be prepared for that to get more difficult and more expensive in 2017 than it's ever been before. And guess what? It's not going to go down in 2018. It's just going to get more competitive. So as such, that might be part of your mix. But you also need to be looking at other things and get aggressive with mediums that you don't think the OTAs can compete with you on. The OTAs don't have your customer list. So email marketing is an area they can't compete with you on. They don't have your customer list. You have your customer list, and you need to be using it to add value and convert past guests into repeat guests. There's so much that ties into content marketing. It's a tremendous opportunity. As we face an increasingly competitive marketing space, you've got to think differently about marketing. You've got to think like Amazon. You've got to think like Google if you're going to be where they are years down the road and be successful years down the road. And that feeds us into this. The war for the customer will intensify in 2017. I mentioned that in 2016, the big branded hotels really started waging this war through this direct booking messaging. And you need to follow suit. You have to wage war for the customer because that's what's at stake here. The OTAs believe they own the customer relationship. I was talking to somebody, actually one of our customers, about it yesterday. We think that some of them are already doing it, but we think the OTAs will continue to move towards anonymizing the customer, meaning they don't give you their information, they don't give you their phone number, they don't give you their email address, they don't let you reach out to them directly because they want the customer to live inside of a competitive moat they have built around themselves. I talked earlier about Amazon's logistics and supply chain. That is a moat that they have built around themselves that their competitors can't get into. And in the same way, the OTAs are trying to build a moat around their customer. And I'm using that Warren Buffett term. It's one of the things I love the quote from him. But they're building that moat around their customers so you can't get to them. Yeah, they're coming to stay at your property, but they're my customer. You own the building. I own the customer. And that's a huge deal. That is a game changer if we let them steal our customers. And all the data that we see is lining up to say the OTAs are winning that war right now, and you have to figure out what role it's going to play in your marketing in 2017. They're driving many people, destination marketing organizations like the one I told you about earlier, they're driving them out of the business of being able to reach the customer. So you have to find new ways of reaching the customer and not rely on the old way of reaching the customer, not relying on the cheap way of reaching the customer. You've got to get aggressive and think differently if you want to continue to reach your customer. And then make sure they have a great experience that's memorable and bring them back directly to you. And then that last one, we believe HomeAway is going to continue to make changes to drive online bookings and their service fee. When we talked about the Expedia acquisition on HomeAway, and we've taught so much on it via webinar, if you missed that, let us know. We'd love for you to see those. There's a lot of good information there. But they're going to do everything they can to implement that service fee, because we believe Expedia bought HomeAway for the specific purpose of monetizing the platform, of implementing the service fee, and possibly a booking fee on the other side down the road. And if they own the customer, they have complete control to do that. So a lot of people are crying foul that VRBO inquiries are down, and we're seeing that across the board. And I told our customer yesterday, I don't think they care. I don't think they care that inquiries are down, because they're not in the inquiry business. They're in the booking business. And an inquiry, by its sheer nature, implies that the booking will happen elsewhere. And they lose control of the customer a little bit when the booking happens elsewhere. So they want to make that booking on their platform as much as possible, and they will continue to drive that agenda with everything that they can. But this is such a big deal in the space as a whole, the war for the customer. And I'm surprised, honestly, that more people aren't talking about it. But it's a huge deal and something you've got to be thinking about as a part of your marketing strategy of how you're going to fight this war with the OTAs and go to battle for these customer relationships, because there's too much at stake to sit back and let them take ownership of that customer. One of the other big things is we think website conversions will become more important. We think marketers in general will become much more conversion rate focused in 2017. And go with me on this, right? I mean, if the cost to acquire a customer increases, which starts with the cost to get someone to my website, right? The cost of pay-per-click, Facebook ads, all that other stuff. All that cost increases and traffic starts costing more money, then it becomes more important with what do I do with the traffic that I have? What do I do with the 99% of people that come to my website and don't make a booking? It's a big deal. That's a conversion discussion. That's a conversion conversation. And smart marketers in 2017 are going to get very focused on website conversion. They're going to get very focused on the 99% that's not booking with them. They're going to get very focused on the people that are not booking because of fear and unknowns and anxiety. And they're going to build strategies to overcome those things in their customers, in their prospective customers. And it becomes a paramount problem to solve if everything else I've said comes to reality. If it doesn't, if marketing gets cheaper, if customer acquisition costs go down, if it gets easier and the war for who owns the customer goes away, it's less of an issue. But if those things come true, website conversion and that path becomes a much, much bigger deal than it's ever been before. And as we look at this and as we talk to people about analytics and we try to help people solve problems and build marketing plans, over 95% of people we talk to don't check their analytics on a regular basis, meaning they have no idea what their conversion is and their path to conversion is. And of those people that are in there, 95% track one or less conversion goals in analytics. Most people don't even track e-commerce bookings in analytics. And I get in the independent sector it's hard, right? Because you're struggling with your booking engine and getting that to work with your website. And a lot of the booking engines just don't respond to those support requests, which aggravates us as we work with our customers to solve that problem. But it's a big deal, and it's going to be a bigger deal in 2017 than it's been before. So you really need to think about that. What are those conversion opportunities? What are those goals? What should you be tracking? What does that path look like? I was talking to a customer of ours. They have a lodging group, which is what we primarily work with them, but they also have a real estate side of their business. So we've been helping them with both, and they were complaining because the real estate transactions were down. Totally get it. Totally a good thing to complain for. I said, well, what about searches? And they're like, what do you mean, what about searches? And I was like, well, how many people are entering your search funnel? I was like, I don't know. I've never even thought about that. And I was like, well, if less people are searching for real estate on your website, chances are less people are going to end up buying property from you. Like, that's just the way that goes, right? I mean, watch that consumer flow. How does it happen? How do people go from, hey, I might buy a house, to actually buying a house? Think about that whole process. And then think about where people are and where you're losing them as they convert down that process. So we dove in their analytics together, and we looked at the different stages of that process, and we looked at their website that somebody else built and put a whole list of things together and say, hey, web developer, you need to fix X, Y, and Z, because X, Y, and Z are going to help more people get in our conversion path. And when we get more people in our conversion path, we're going to get more customers at the bottom with a transaction. That's just the way these things go. But if you've not really thought about it, you haven't looked at it, you've got to hone in on that. We also believe mobile booking will increase, and booking engines need to keep up. This is one of our frustrations in the independent side of the lodging space, that the booking engines aren't keeping up and aren't doing a great job from a mobile experience. So you've really got to make sure your mobile booking experience is great. Go out there and look at some of the big boys that are spending lots of money, the Expedias, the Booking.com. Look at what they're doing from a mobile booking experience and emulate as much of that as you can, because I guarantee you, like I said earlier, they're spending millions testing those things and figuring those things out. There's a lot of money at stake if your mobile booking engine is not working well. And we've seen mobile conversion rates, as far as people going to the website and making a booking, go down significantly this year on sites that don't have a good mobile experience. And I believe that is because consumers' expectation has changed. In 2015, people expected your mobile experience to be bad. So they were kind of okay with it, and they would struggle through it if they had to. In 2016, the expectation has increased. They expect it to be good, and when it's not, it surprises them that it's not, and they leave in favor of going somewhere where it is, i.e., your competitors have invested into making sure that they have a good mobile booking experience. You have to make sure you don't get left behind, or you're going to be losing business from that. And we talked a little bit about this as well, but new customers, we talked a lot about this actually, new customers are entering the market for the first time with lots of questions and lots of fears. One of the things I love about all the growth of Airbnb, and I say this a lot because I know a lot of people villainize them, but the growth that Airbnb has seen has created marketing for our sector, for the independent lodging sector, like it's never had before, and it has forced HomeAway to do more marketing than it has ever done before. So those two going to war with each other has grown awareness for all of us, which is resulting in these new customers entering the marketplace that have never been here before, and the new opportunity that we have to acquire those customers. So it's a shift that we can really focus on, but as I spoke about earlier, you have to think about that customer and understand that customer is different than the customer who stayed with you 5 times before or stayed in a property a lot like yours before. They don't know who you are, what you stand for, what the experience is going to be like. And if they don't know, they will go somewhere else. So you have to think about that in your content, in your path of your website, in your photography, in the story you tell. You have to think about those things to overcome fears and objections that a customer booking your type of accommodation for the first time may have. Next one there, dynamic pricing will become more mainstream. We saw vast adoption in dynamic pricing or revenue management or yield management in 2016. But we still hear a lot of objections around it. We've helped customers implement dynamic pricing and revenue management strategy who were very hesitant to implement it. But I put the trust me card out there and said, hey, have I ever steered you wrong before? Trust me on this and watch what happens. And we've driven tremendous success with many people using a strong dynamic pricing or revenue management strategy. And I think with the successes people are seeing and those stories getting out, that more of you will implement dynamic pricing or revenue management principles in 2017. The frustrating part of it is the tools are still lacking. Like the tools aren't really where they need to be. So we're hoping, and one of the reasons we say this is so that those people that build those tools, many of them are our partners and our friends, that they step up that game and know that we're championing that cause behind the scenes on your behalf as well. That through our conversations, we're fighting that battle and we're encouraging them and we're helping them. We do a lot of free consulting for them because we know it ultimately builds your business and helps support you and grow you. And then this is one of the most important parts of this whole thing, and it kind of ties this whole slide together, but your website will be more important than ever for direct bookings, and it will become the #1 weapon you have in the war for the customer. Your website will become the #1 weapon you have in the war for the customer. And I know I wrote tool in my notes, but honestly, weapon just sounds like a better word right now. Maybe not since Christmas is Sunday, but that's what's going on here, right? I mean, there's a battle happening, and your website is your tool or your weapon to fight that battle. And you can't go on accepting the fact that yours is subpar. You can't go on accepting that your competitor's is better than yours. Those days are over. You're being left behind if that's the case. The marketplace is leaving you behind, and we have data to prove it. You look at your website as an expense, but as an investment you're making in growing your business. And that investment is absolutely critical to your success in 2017. And not just throwing up a website for website's sake. Don't just put lipstick on a pig and put a pretty new skin on it. You've got to think about that, everything else I've talked about. You've got to think about that conversion path, the story you're telling, the objections you're overcoming, the fears you're solving. You've got to think about those things to make your consumers more comfortable to book with you. Your website is not a brochure. Your website is a sales tool that works for you 24/7, and you got to work hard on it as a result. And it should be constantly evolving. It shouldn't be a project you do that's here today and gone tomorrow. It's something that is constantly evolving. And a lot of the leaders in the web design space are moving that direction. They're moving to platform-driven solutions that allow it to constantly evolve, that allow them to make updates real-time for customers so they can move faster and easier. That same customer I was talking about that was struggling with their website and their performance was down, and we were going through the changes together and sending those off to their web developer. They said, Matt, these changes are probably going to take about a month to get done. And I said, a month? That's unacceptable. Like, you're going to lose so much business in that month if these changes don't get done. You've lost business today because these changes aren't there. You've got to go after these things. It has to be faster. And the right technology built the right way today and for the future is more platform-driven, less project-driven. And it enables you to make changes faster. It's user-friendly. It's easy. It provides a great mobile experience. Not easy to build, but it's easy to maintain if it's built the right way the first time. So there's so much that goes into that. We've taught a lot about that in the last 3 months because we've been studying conversion a lot as a company, and it's led us to teach a lot of webinars on it. There's a lot of content we've shared as a part of that process, but you've really got to be focused on that and understanding the role that your website plays in 2017 and the role it plays as you're competing for the customer in a way you've never had to compete before. And understanding that that competition is not going away. It's just going to increase and get more intense. And you got to think about those things and make sure if you're going to build a new site or change the sites you have, you're thinking conversion, you're thinking conversion path, you're thinking marketing, not thinking like a web designer. You're not thinking like X's and O's. You're not thinking like code. You're thinking like solving problems for people, understanding where people enter your website, and understanding how to get them to convert to the next step when they're in that place, because the game is changing, and we don't want you to get left behind. So as we talk about that, I want to talk a little bit about some takeaways. My mind was swimming as I was preparing all this content. There's just so much going on. There's so much coming for 2017. And we believe eternal optimists, but that the opportunity is ripe for people that want to get aggressive in 2017. For people that want to do things the right way in 2017, there's going to be a tremendous amount of opportunity. But you have to really focus on strategy and being smarter and more aggressive probably than you've ever been before in your marketing. So with all that information, and I know probably some of your heads are spinning a little bit right now, I wanted to kind of sum it down a little bit. I want you to listen to the recording because there's some things you probably need to hear again for it to really sink in. But as you're looking ahead, as you're creating that picture of what 2017 looks like, as you're brainstorming with your team, as you're planning your strategy and the next moves you're going to make, here's some key things we want you to focus on to create success in 2017. First, develop your OTA strategy carefully. I believe OTAs have a role in your marketing strategy, but shouldn't be the primary thing you rely on to get your business. Because if you do, you're captive to them, and you will not succeed in the long run. You will not have a profitable business in the long run if you get too OTA reliant, nor will you have a business that has real value, because you're essentially just inventory sold by the OTAs, and that doesn't have a lot of value for someone who might consider buying a company in the future. Second, have a plan to convert new customers in the market. You've heard me mention it today on 2 or 3 different slides, the new customers that are entering the market that we've never seen before in our market space. And that's backed up by a Focusrite study that they did. I didn't have that data. I couldn't put my fingers on it to get it in here for you today in time. But there's new customers entering the market. The research tells us that, and you have to have a plan to convert those people. Third, savvy marketers will embrace branded content marketing. Savvy marketers will go about solving problems for customers, not marketing inventory. Marketing inventory is always going to be a part of the mix, but solving problems, content marketing, is one of those tools that you will be able to differentiate yourself and create a moat around yourself from the OTAs. If all your competitors become reliant on the OTAs, but you build this moat around yourself that builds direct business and direct channel bookings, you will be a lot more successful and you'll have a business worth a lot more in the long run. But you have to commit to that process. And content marketing is the best way of doing that. We can tell you case study after case study of companies that we've helped do that successfully. So as you're thinking about your plan for 2017, you've got to embrace that mentality and methodology. And then the fourth there is plan to invest in improving your website and your conversion strategy. Conversion strategy is something not a lot of people have talked about, but it's something you've got to turn your attention to. And you've got to be planning to make investments in that. And when I say investing in those things, it doesn't mean completely redo your website. You might need to do that. Many of you need to do that because I'm on many of your websites throughout the process of what I do. And many of you need to do that. But not all of you do. Some of you have great websites that just need tweaks. And understanding that you should be tweaking those things on a constant basis. Looking for conversion changes you can be making to make your website work better, to communicate better, to help tell your story better, to help the guests have a better experience. Lots of opportunities, lots of changes there, but it's not something that's ever once and done. It's a process that's evolving and changing all the time. And you need to be planning to invest in that process in 2017 if you want to succeed. So that's a ton of information, lots going into that. Hopefully those 4 key takeaways are helpful for you to kind of sum it up and figure out where you need to focus. As you're working that way and you're analyzing how your 2016 performed versus your 2015, we want to make a free Google Analytics analysis available for you as well. So if you'd like to take advantage of the free Google Analytics analysis, please by all means do that. I'm going to launch a poll for that now, so just say yes, you'd like to take advantage of that free Google Analytics analysis. We'll be in touch to schedule a time for that, or select no. If you've done it before recently or you're not interested, just check no. Or the third option there, I'd like to know how Q4 Launch can help. If we've said something that jumped out to you and you're saying, hey, I really just want somebody to partner with me and come alongside us, and in 2017 help us figure all this out because it is a little overwhelming, check that box. And we'll be in touch with you directly about some next steps you can take and figure out what it looks like to partner with us in that. So I want to make those available, make those opportunities available for you. So yes, I'd like a free Google Analytics analysis just to figure out what's gone well this year, what do I need to change for 2017. No, I think I've got my Google Analytics covered, I'm an expert. Or the third option, I'd like to know how Q4 Launch can help. Check that box and we'll get in touch with you about the possibility of partnering with you in 2017. So with that, let's jump over and answer some questions. I've got a couple things in the pipeline there of our questions. Actually, it looks like some, not questions, but some reports that some people had audio issues in the mix. So apologize if anybody had audio issues. Hopefully you got that resolved. I'm not sure if that was on our side or if it was on your side, but hopefully you got that resolved. I only see one person commenting, so hopefully that was on their side. Any questions on today's topic that we can answer for anybody? Please drop that in that chat panel. I'll be happy to answer any questions for you. Question here from Susan. What do you see as the future of Google in 2017? Interesting question, Susan. I think much like a lot of the things, Google is going to change a lot. We saw a lot of change in Google in 2016. We saw the move away from the sidebar ads. We saw the reduction in the number of ads, which also drove costs higher. we think they're going to continue to make changes to monetize their platform and make it more of a pay-to-play platform with very specific terms like lodging your city, or bed and breakfast your city, or vacation rental your city, or hotel your city, or any of those big picture lodging keywords that people are focused on. We think they're going to make that more expensive and more of a pay-to-play mentality, which we also think makes the case even stronger for content marketing, because that's more of a long-tail focus, and it lets you go after people and reach people when they're in a different part of that overall funnel. So I don't think you're going to do away with one or the other. I think that traditional SEO and traditional paid advertising is going to get more expensive because the changes Google makes will continue to drive that. But I think it also creates an opportunity for you to succeed with the content marketing, the long-tail keywords that you're focusing on via your blog. Hopefully that's helpful for you. It's tough to predict what a company like Google is going to do, but hopefully that's helpful. Question from Tony: what was the result of the earlier poll of ranking our effectiveness? We'll send that out, Tony. I don't know if I can actually see the results of that right inside the webinar. Let me see if I can see the results of that live on the webinar here. No, I can't see the results of that live. So we will send that out as a part of the results of today's webinar with that to let you know what the final tally of all that was. Thanks for the question there, Tony. Question from Bill: I'm a small company startup, July of 2016. Should I get off Expedia? Bill, that's a tough one. I mean, it's so specific to you and your situation to know. We see Expedia as a really important part of the overall mix, especially in urban markets and some of those things. If you're a small organization, a small B&B, I would definitely probably block out the seasons that you think you can book on your own. So block out inventory on weekends, things like that. Maybe block out peak season altogether, of course, depending on what destination you're in. And then as you're getting more and more direct business, right, you just started this year, so as you're building more and more direct business, I would be reducing your availability on Expedia or other OTAs, because you want to book that direct as much as possible. You want to get as much direct business as possible. But if you're pushing all your inventory to OTAs or Expedia, then you're losing the opportunity to book that directly, and you're increasing your customer acquisition costs, as we talked about earlier. So hopefully that answers your question, Bill, but it is very specific by market and everything else. Question here from Ben: any suggestions on getting dynamic pricing in effect? Any booking platform or engines that you know are supporting this feature capability? Ben, if you could drop me an email, that's actually depending on what part of the industry that you're in, that I would be happy to answer that for you. It was just how big you are and what part of the industry you're in will vary that answer quite a bit. So send me an email. My email address is there on the screen, and I'll be happy to give me a little bit more information, what sector of the industry you're in, how many rooms or properties you have, things like that, and I can help you with that a little bit more directly. But there is software. Many of the top booking engines and property management softwares have this now because it has become certain mainstream. So they quote-unquote have it, but the tool is a little bit weak as an overall tool from an execution perspective. So hopefully that's helpful for you. I had a question about rating a website. Yes, we'd be happy to do, we have a free 21-point website inspection that we do. You can request it on our website, or you can send an email to me at the email address on the screen, and we would be happy to do the 21-point website inspection for you or anybody else if that's something you're interested in. I'm trying to figure out how well your website's performing in the overall mix as you're headed in 2017. Email us, and we'll be happy to follow up with you on a website inspection. So, thanks for that question as well. Well, with that, we will end our time together today. This was our last webinar of the year. We have a lot planned for 2017 that we're really excited about. So look forward to following up with you on that. But till then, have a great holiday, have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, and we will talk to you all again soon.